Alumni Chat for fall 2021. Had to remind myself where we were. I want to thank Jocelyn Kojzar. I think I got your name correct.
You got it. You got it.
For joining us today. She is the Manager of Marketing Intelligence at Wunderman Thompson. I am Jackie Banks. I'm the Arts Media and Communication Advisor here at Colley. And we are just going to have a really just nice casual conversation about what it is that Jocelyn does. And for those of you that are interested in marketing, some best practices and just things to know about getting into the field. So Jocelyn, as a 2015 MSB Marketing and Open graduate, I should just say that, what does it mean to be a manager of marketing intelligence? Like, what does that entail? What does your day look like?
Yeah. So first and foremost, Wunderman Thompson is an advertising agency. So everything that I do is to understand how to inspire people to do some sort of behavior. So my work in marketing intelligence is to understand how effective we are at doing that and how to become more effective at doing it, make recommendations for the future. So that encompasses understanding and reporting on the performance of all of the different work that we have in market. So when you see advertisements on TV, when you see banner ads, when you go on a website, when you go to a brand's website and search either to shop for something or to get more information, I'm always trying to understand and watch what you guys are doing and what you guys are paying attention to so that we can better target information towards those people in the future. So it's definitely, I think when you first start out in a field like this, it's a lot of numbers, a lot of Excel, and a lot of like back-end tagging with the website or with different advertisements. But once you kind of get more experience, then it's a little bit more focused on advising towards future initiatives and making sure that everything that you do is rooted in data. So do you have a reason or strategy behind making those decisions? So it's definitely exciting. I feel like advertising is very fast paced and we're always client focused as well. So we're always trying to make sure that our clients are happy and that they're achieving their internal goals. So it's because of that, we're very responsive to clients, always on email, always connected. And I really enjoy that. I find that exciting. So it's a cool environment and learned a lot by working here.
So I have to say, you're talking about a very specific part of marketing, and I was going to ask you about this a little bit later before, students who are watching this, they're, who are just kind of starting, like, what does it mean to go into this marketing? What does that look like? What are some job functions? So a lot of times it's like, what does that look like? If you were just to kind of maybe help brainstorm like some possible pathways.
Yeah. So when I was in school, I knew going right away that I wanted to do marketing because I always thought that was an interesting combination of creativity, psychology, and now data. And of course, within the business school, the OPEM program is kind of the data and analytics focused program. So I saw those two as a perfect combination, and I can get a little bit more of the heavy data understanding. So once I decided as those two as my major, or two majors, then I kind of wanted to figure out, okay, well, I know that I like this program and these fields, but what can I do next? And so I think a lot of different companies actually need support in a data focus. There's so much out there of being able to understand people's behaviors and track what they're doing. So no matter what company you go in, I think data will always be supportive of that. But what I really enjoy about marketing is that like psychology and creative aspect to it. And so you kind of learn how to problem solve and understand people as individuals as opposed to just like this big monolith, because everyone's different, right? You all have different kind of different perspectives and reasons for why you do different things. So marketing is all about convincing people to do what you want them to do, and figuring out the best argument for that. So I think a lot of different companies need that kind of support and perspective, including advertising, of course, but lots of different industries have different marketing fields. I know consulting is a huge thing at Georgetown, so that's always a field that's available for this kind of combination. But I also think that the principles and perspectives that you learn within the marketing department are applicable to a lot of different industries and roles. So, you know, if consulting isn't right for you, which it wasn't for me, so no pressure there, of course, then, you know, you'll find options elsewhere. And I think it's just all about figuring out, talking to alumni, talking to professors, and listening to talks like this where you get a different perspective of what do people do actually in the field. And then if you find what they've said interesting, then, you know, definitely reach out, definitely email, message on LinkedIn. I'm certainly available, and I always appreciate it when a Georgetown alum reaches out to me and says, hey, I'm really interested in advertising. What can I learn from you? Do you mind like just chatting about something, or chatting about what your life is like or work is like? So that I think is totally fine. And I encourage people to do that, because that's actually how I ended up working in advertising, is reaching out to alumni. So yeah.
That's great, because you touched a little bit on networking there too.
Yes.
So, and that's always a bit of a hot button / panic issue for a lot of students. And maybe we'll come back to that, but I'm kind of curious, because you also touched on this, it's like, as you're going through college, what were some of the maybe classes that you took that were really impactful, the experiences or internships? And you mentioned OPM, clearly taking some of those classes were really where you were like, you know, I really enjoy doing data work and where this could lead. But maybe thinking through some of those like just specific experiences or specific internships that kind of solidified things for you.
Yeah. So the classes, I'll start with that. The classes that I took that I really enjoyed, I think consumer behavior, which the name may have changed over the years, I don't know, but it counted towards both marketing and OPM. And I really appreciated that class because it was about using data to understand people's opinions and their behaviors. So that kind of clicked for me. So that was one class I really enjoyed. And then I took, trying to think. It's so hard now. I feel like I'm like way out of the realm of school now, because it's been a few years. But I do remember I took my senior year, I took in a course, I think that was called like Imagination and something else. But I thought that was really interesting because once again, it got to like looking at problems in a different way and trying to be creative in your problem solving. So I thought that was really interesting. And principles of marketing, of course, I know that's a required course for everyone who is in the business school, but I thought that was a great course that gave me a good fundamental understanding and really reinforced that marketing is what I wanted to get into. So I think there are some really great courses at Georgetown. Anything with Professor Scuba is awesome. He's a great professor and has had a lot of good experience in the industry. So definitely recommend taking a class with him if you choose the marketing major. And then in terms of internships, so when I was in school, I was a rower. So I woke up super early in the mornings, did my practices, and then went to class, which meant that I didn't have a ton of time actually to do internships. So I will just say straight up, if you feel behind with your internships or feel like really nervous that you're not getting the experience that everyone else around you is getting, that's okay. Like, that's just, you figure out what you're doing in school, you figure out what you're passionate about, and you'll get there. You'll still have a job after graduation, don't worry. But that being said, my senior year, my second semester, I did an internship at a company called Wedding Wire, which is actually now the company that owns The Knot. So anyone who knows someone who's getting married or engaged or whatever, they have probably heard of those companies. And I worked in their email marketing department, and that gave me some really good solid principles and what you do in a day-to-day working environment that incorporates data into marketing decisions. So once I did that internship, I was like, okay, what else can I do? What else can I understand? So there's, I think, a lot of different opportunities out there. I know Wunderman Thompson has an internship program. So if you are looking for an internship, then I definitely encourage you to reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you with anyone internally in the different departments that we have at Wunderman Thompson, depending on what you're interested in. And, just keep a lookout at different advertising agencies, because they'll post openings for internships as they kind of open up. And I think summer is a huge time for it. So those will definitely be available, even virtually. So yeah, hopefully that helped.
No, it does, and so like you touched on a little bit of kind of the timeline issues. So a lot of students who of course come to see me, and if they're looking around them at the finance consulting, the juggonaut of that.
Yeah.
And there's a very strict timeline that goes along with that. So the question is, with the idea of being behind, what would you say about timelines in marketing?
Yeah, I felt like that too. Oh my God, like I was so nervous and worried the entire first semester of my senior year, because all my friends who had internships in finance or consulting the summer before their senior year started getting offers around that time. So I personally was freaking out, and I was like, I'm not going to have a job with graduation. And it just is how marketing works, is that the openings are posted upon availability. And because of that, there's not as much of a, I guess, like even cycle of people applying and openings and getting jobs and getting internships and stuff. So it does make it a little bit tougher, because you have to do a little bit more of that work to say, okay, like I want to check the job openings from this company, from that company, and you kind of just have to keep looking. So I will say, like, it works out. You just have to kind of keep an eye open. I actually didn't even have a full-time job when I graduated. I had another internship. I continued the Wedding Wire internship through the summer, and then found a different job in the fall. So that was like my full-time job post-college, like officially, once the fall rolled around. So it does work out. You just have to kind of keep an eye out and keep looking. And I think the thing that will definitely be helpful, which I actually wish I had done more of, so if you don't do it, it's not a big deal, like you'll still figure it out, but it can be helpful and ease that that worry, is doing a little bit of that networking, and reaching out to alumni who do things like this, who do these kinds of like lunch and learns, or post jobs on the career website, and ask them for just an informational interview. And then if you are interested in what they talk about, then keep an eye on their job openings website. And then when an opening comes up that you're interested in, don't be afraid to reach out to them and say, hey, like, I know we had this chat, I found it really helpful. I'm interested in this opening. Do you have any advice, for when I apply? Because even like there's incentives internally at a bunch of companies for referrals. Even if the person that you're talking to doesn't work directly in the department that you're interested in or within that team specifically, they probably know someone who does, or they know the HR hiring department or recruiters. So, if people reach out to me, we have a conversation and they're interested in Wunderman Thompson, then I'm always happy to help connect them with someone that works in the department that they're interested in, if it's not mine, so that they can get more of a better idea, a better perspective of what working life is like. So I think that networking can be really helpful, and it doesn't come naturally to me. So I totally understand if people feel nervous about it, but I think Georgetown is such a great school because alumni are really happy to help out students who are looking for the next stage in their career. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out, just ping people on LinkedIn or ask your professors if they know any alumni who work in different industries, and, just ask.
Yeah, and what often I'll tell students that instead of, I call it networking to start, but I say it's really like it's relationship building. It's you start getting to know somebody. What we're doing right now is kind of an informational interview. In fact, it is an informational interview. So a lot of these chats that we're having is that what I tell students that this is the model, where you get to be your authentic self and you're just learning a little bit about what the person does and advice that they might have. So it's building relationships. It's not transactional, and it doesn't have to be icky.
Exactly. It can just be something as casual as, tell me what your how you got your foot in the door, or do you mind giving me a little bit of information about what your day-to-day working life is like? Because even that is helpful for you to understand, is this something that excites me, or that's not what I want to do? So you'll figure it out, and it's really casual and straightforward. So I don't think even any of my friends who I've graduated around the same time with, we all kind of have the same attitude. If someone wants a little bit more information, we're happy to help them out.
So along with the networking piece, I often ask my students about how they can better, what skills that they can kind of develop, anything that they can do to make themselves more to get that job in marketing, we'll say. So I know we've talked about it before, and you said Excel is really helpful. And as I'm listening to this, it sounds like problem solving. So I'm thinking through what are some skills, whether soft skills you think are just helpful to enjoy doing or helpful to develop. And, if there are any hard skills that you can think of, and then maybe you talk about Excel, because again, I sometimes think students, they think, Excel, but it can be useful.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I will say Excel, I think, is most helpful if you work in a data field. That's kind of the most straightforward, basic program that you're going to want to get familiar with. And I think most of these kind of data and analytics classes will give you that Excel basis. So if you're more on the marketing side and you're not really into data, then I wouldn't stress too much if you don't know Excel. That's the first thing. I think problem solving, definitely, that's something, there's always going to be interesting issues that pop up that you really hadn't anticipated. So figuring out, what's the right approach with them, and being able to kind of look at stuff from a new perspective and say, okay, well, if I know this, maybe let me look at the opposite of that and see if that gives me a little bit more information, or, kind of flips the problem on its head. So I think that's really helpful. So for anyone who's starting in marketing, I would say those quote soft skills are the most important thing. I know like everyone calls them soft skills, so like it's really easy to just say soft, but I always feel like it's a bit of a misnomer because those are skills that not everyone has, and it's really sometimes hard to develop like once you've started your career fully. So if you're a student or if you're like just about to graduate this year, then that's like, use this time now to really like get those skills and practice it. So one, being able to talk with people, build relationships, things like that can be really helpful, especially in a field where you're trying to interface with people. So in advertising, we do a lot of client-facing work. So being able to build a relationship with the client and hear what they're saying and be like, all right, how can I help them solve their problems? And, what can I do to make their life easier is always really important. So that people skills, great. The other thing I would say is questioning. So always wanting to understand like the next step and not being afraid to kind of ask, why are we doing this? Why are we interested in, pursuing this audience of people? Or why are we making this the KPI or the goal of the campaign? What if we did this instead? Or, talking to the rest of the team around you and trying to better understand background behind stuff and not being afraid to ask questions, I think is really helpful ultimately, because if you don't ask the question and it's kind of just left floating there, then, question could come up 3 months later and then you still don't know the answer. So it's better to just ask it right away and get a little bit more background and, it might spark something in someone else's head. I always really appreciate it when the analysts on my team ask me questions, because it helps me kind of think, oh, well, maybe we should do that, or maybe we should try something different. So I think my team is really great because no one has the attitude of like, I know best, like this is it. We always kind of have this questioning attitude of like, is this really what we want to do, or do we want to try something different? So having that kind of practice. And then finally, just having like a really good attitude and being enthusiastic about the work in front of you. Passion is something that I feel like it doesn't always come easily, for sure. And it's not something it's not always something that you come to naturally, but it's something that can really show. So I always really appreciate it when I'm working with an entry level analyst and they're just excited to be there and excited to learn something new. So it makes me feel a lot more excited about teaching them or introducing them to new concepts, because I know that they'll take it in and start to understand different principles better, and then can grow. And I find it really really gratifying when I see people grow in their career that I've mentored. So that's something that I feel like, if you have that enthusiasm and passion about what you're doing, then it will show and people will be excited to work with you too.
As you were talking through all these, and you're right, like with soft skills, it's skills, and you're right, not everybody has those particular skills, and if you do, that's great and a benefit, or something you can develop, knowing that that's important to have.
Yeah.
Something else that I was thinking back is that you were saying you did rowing, which oh my goodness, starting so early in the morning, boy, that's a lot. But I do get athletes that they're so busy, and it's hard to do, like hard if not possible to do an internship during the academic year. So would you say that you brought some skills from being an athlete over to what you do now too? So what would you say to the athletes who maybe want to follow in your footsteps, but are also concerned that maybe that their resume doesn't look the same as other people's?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I I was always really worried about it. And I felt like I got a lot of pressure from people who weren't athletes of like, well, you should just quit because it's taking up so much of your time. And that always made me really sad because I'm like, I really enjoy rowing and I have such a good relationship with my teammates. So I don't want to quit. And I didn't. I did it all 4 years. And so it was hard. I'm not going to lie. It was definitely a lot of time and a lot of effort, but I do think that I learned a lot. I learned how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So, athletes across the board will all have situations where they're in their race or in their game or whatever, and they're like, I'm pushing the limits of what I can do, but like I want to win. I want to get the medal or get the goal or whatever, and that's I think that skill is really helpful in future career choices, because there are going to be situations where you're kind of thrown in the deep end and you're like, this is kind of pushing the limits of what I know, but I work here, I have a unique perspective, and the effort that I put in will give me much greater reward. So I think athletes across the board, no matter what industry you work in, whether it's marketing, whether it's analytics, whether it's finance, whether it's even, I have former teammates who are lawyers now, who work in environmental science, so like all sorts of fields, of course. But all the skills that we learned when we were rowing and on the water and is definitely helping us all be pretty successful, I think. Not to toot my own horn, but my friends are also I feel like I'm proud of all their accomplishments as well. So I think being comfortable being uncomfortable is really important. Also, being willing to put in hard work to be able to get the reward, or get even like a gradual sense of reward. There's it's not like you go to one practice and then you're a spectacular athlete superstar. It's days and months and years of hard work, and I think being able to put in that effort and have that perseverance, but still be determined to get to your end goal will be helpful no matter what industry you work in. And I think being able to be a part of a team and trust the people around you to do what they're supposed to do is really important. So that, I think, it gives you people skills, it gives you a willingness to put in the work. And I think, there's a lot of great reasons to be on a team, and that's why I decided to do it. And I don't have any regrets.
I have to say, after spending so much time in this role, I do see employers like athletes for a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned, is that, and I think that comfort with being uncomfortable, or that willingness to put time and effort in, and how to integrate into a team. And I think all of those are incredibly valuable skills that, again, employers do look for. So thank you for bringing up the athletic perspective, because I think there's a lot of athletes that are interested, and because of time, sometimes they either are interested and aren't able to come into the office, or feel as though that their resumes are not the same as other people. That's okay. Like, they have great experience doing what they're doing. Yeah,
definitely. And I will say, when you're graduating college and you're applying to a new job, I know when I was an undergrad and I was applying to jobs, I felt like I had to prove that I knew what I was talking about, that I was this like marketing guru, that I could do anything data-wise that they asked of me. And now being a manager and having hiring new people and building a team, someone comes right out of college and I'm like, they don't know anything. Like, it's fine. Even if they have internships, it's great to see people have examples of work that they've done, and have some good starting points. But I don't really expect anyone coming straight out of college to be an expert. And so that's totally fine. And I think any quality workplace will have training, will have onboarding sessions for you, and will help build that skill set that you do need to actually like get your work done. So don't stress too much if you're like, well, someone else has done like 5 internships and I've only done 1. Like, what does that, like, they're gonna get it and I'm not. There's so many other factors that go into hiring someone beyond, oh, what is their internship experience? It's also about those quote unquote soft skills. And being able to work with other people is really important. So I think if you can make those connections with people and show that you're a hard worker, that you're passionate, that you're willing to ask questions, then, you know, that will go a long way as well.
That's really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah.
So moving away from the athlete discussion, and so now a question on, and we talked a little bit about this beforehand, and I know you've been agency pretty much except for Wedding Wire. I think.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're pretty much agency except for that. But that's often a question I get, is that, should I start at an agency? Is that the best place to get experience if I'm interested in marketing? Should I go to industry? Like, what is that? What would you say to somebody who's just trying to think through like where to begin?
Yeah. So for me, I think agency, the benefit of working at an agency, first off, is that fast-paced environment, like I talked about before. So being able to get kind of a quick return on the ideas that you've put into place. I think that's really exciting. So I like to see, oh, I came up with this idea and we did it and then it worked. Like, that's really gratifying for me. So I think working at an agency gives you that. I also think that being at an agency, because we have different departments, you know, I work in the marketing and intelligence department, but we also have a client services department. We have a strategy department. We have a creative department. So if you know Photoshop, if you know Illustrator, if you like doing video editing, like creative department is great for you. User experience, project management, finance, you know, we have a bunch of different departments. And what's I think unique about working at an agency is that each of those departments will have, of course, a different specialty, a different perspective on every single project that we work on. And because of that, we need to have everyone at the table when we make decisions. And so, especially being in the business school, lots of group projects, right? And I think that's exactly what working life is like at an agency, that you get really good experience in working with a lot of different types of people when you're in school. And so at an agency, it's just like that. So not that all the group projects were perfect, certainly not gonna have any qualms about saying that, but I think what I really appreciated with that is being able to work with other people. I'm not the type of person that can just sit at a desk and kind of look at data all day. I really like the collaboration side of it. So that I think that's definitely a benefit of working at an agency, is working with a lot of different types of people, different specialties, that will give you really good perspective. And then I think the other thing with an agency is that there are some instances where you'll work only on one client. There are some instances where you'll work on 3 different client projects, but regardless of either situation, you'll be exposed to a lot of different types of work. So by working at Wunderman Thompson, I know site marketing, I know display and digital, social, so, you know, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I've had lots of different experience in doing marketing and advertising in those fields. And then also working in CRM, so having a relationship with the customers, sending them emails, sending them packages in the mail, and continuing to build that relationship with your individual customers. is also really interesting. So there is a whole wealth of different types of projects to work on when you're at an agency, whereas, and I've not worked in marketing, so I'm not 100% sure about this, but my understanding is that one person will work in CRM, one person will work in social, one person will work in digital. So it's kind of like you become a little bit more specialized, whereas with an agency, you get like this wealth of experience. And then if you really like one aspect of it, then, you know, it's not like what you start out with will 100% be your career moving forward. You can kind of pivot and figure out, oh, well, I really like this, so I'm going to do that in the next stage of my career, or look for a role that's like specialty in that. So I think just starting out, agency, fabulous.
Oh, that's good to know that I'm pretty much saying the same thing. So that's that's always good confirmation. All right.
Yeah.
So kind of the last question I think I have, and then I could just go to you for final advice or thoughts, is COVID and the impact on the industry. And as we were talking before we started recording, you're still working from home. So we're fall 2021, you're still home and will be for a little bit, sounds like. So I guess what changes are you seeing in the industry, whether it's hybrid work, whether it's the type of clients that that you're seeing come in now? I mean, entertainment for a while was really not doing so great. So, but how have agencies pivoted? Are they still pretty healthy and well, even with everything that went on during the pandemic? So anything you can talk about that?
So yes, just first off, working virtually, our office is open if people do want to go in for whatever reason. You know, some people enjoy being in the office, but I think for me, working virtually has been really great because we're so like online anyway that I don't feel like disconnected per se. Like I'm able to reach out to anyone that I need to, able to get in contact with them. And we do a lot of video calls like this, which it definitely can be exhausting if you have a full day of that. I know Zoom fatigue is definitely a thing. But I think, you know, everyone's still trying to figure out a balance. But I think being able to work virtually is great. I've also seen a lot of remote working. So people have moved to different areas, and it's not just Wunderman Thompson, but this is like across the board. People are starting to work in offices that aren't in the city that they're located in. So I know someone who got a job at TikTok, and they live in DC, but TikTok is in California. So they're working on West Coast time. There's people I know who live in Florida are working in a New York office virtually. So I know when I was graduating looking for jobs, I always kind of felt like DC was really tough for marketing. And I always heard New York was the place to go. I ended up working in New York for a few years after graduation, and then I moved back to the DC area because I have family here. I really like DC. And I was kind of like, oh, is this really the right move for me long-term career-wise? But I felt like I want to have a quality outside of work environment, number one, and then hopefully can find a really good career fit, which I have, which is great. But now I don't feel like there's that limitation anymore. There's plenty of people who are working remotely and figuring out like, all right, well, this job is in New York, this job is in Chicago, I live in DC. Yeah, figure it out, it's fine, I'll work virtually. So I think that's really awesome because it kind of levels the playing field for everyone. So I would say focus on post-graduation. If you want to move back to your hometown, if you want to try a brand new city, that isn't limiting your job prospects. So that's number one, which is great. I think there's definitely still uncertainty for what's going to happen in the future. I know my office is like, we have the virtual option at least through the end of the year, which is awesome. But there's still a lot of conversations internally about, okay, how long do we want to continue this? Do we want people to, do we want to have an option virtually forever? Or is this, just a temporary thing? And then we need to have people come in at least once a week. So there's still kind of that discussion with some companies of like, what do we want to do? So I would say as students, because you are getting that virtual class experience, that will probably help you when you're looking for jobs, and you'll probably start virtually in some capacity. But the company does do a lot of work trying to like onboard people and make sure they still feel connected with their team. So, like I said, video calls help a ton. Being able to kind of chat with people casually. I watch The Bachelor, and we have this chat going in Microsoft Teams at work that's just all about The Bachelor, and we kind of just go back and forth, and we're like, can you believe what happened last night? So you do still definitely get that environment of like the water cooler chat, and then there's like a pets chat, so people post pictures of their pets and funny things that they've done. So there's still really good camaraderie even virtually. It is a little bit tougher because you don't get that like, oh, you want to go grab coffee together, and you walk somewhere and you walk to Starbucks, you get a coffee, and you kind of chat a little bit, catch up along the way. But there is still, people still want that kind of feeling. So people still reach out, still want to talk and, shoot the breeze. Yeah, so I think those are the main virtual things that are going on. In terms of how the industry is doing, so the business unit that I work in is health and pharmaceutical based. So we're doing okay. I think especially during the pandemic, there was a lot of still that uncertainty. And I think understanding that people are really concerned about their health, especially during this time, has helped me feel like, okay, what I'm doing is actually helping people and giving them something to learn and something to hold on to during this time. So I feel like that's been very gratifying. There has been a bit of a shift, of course, because we're client focused. If there is issues in like the travel industry, for example, then the agencies that have the travel industry companies as their clients are also going to be trying to figure out, okay, what the heck do we do to try to help convince people to travel, or hold on to their frequent flyer miles or whatever it may be. So whatever is happening in the economy or in the larger working industry is going to impact advertising. And because of that, we've definitely seen some shifts in what industries are kind of the main focus versus not. But I will think, I kind of have this attitude of, as long as companies need help in making those connections like internally, and making connections with people, then advertising agencies will always be there to help them do that. So I think we're still doing really important things and still seeing some success. So there's plenty of opportunity for sure. And it'll shift, of course, as virtual becomes more of a reality, but it's just the new normal, to use that phrase. Overused phrase.
No, that's good. It's good to know. I think students are still trying to figure out what this new hybrid environment will look like.
Yeah.
I mean, they have it pretty solid for their classes, but in terms of professionally, it's we're all still experiencing it, and none of us are experts. And and it sounds as though the jobs are still out there, but of course, some agencies that might be working in some of these with some of these other industries that have been more impacted, they may not have the same kind of plentiful jobs, but across the board, we're not seeing that there's a dearth of jobs.
Exactly. And I think, you know, when you look at how the pandemic impacted people when it first became like this huge issue, like everyone was staying home, no one was doing anything, right? Everyone was so freaked out and scared. And now as the vaccines are kind of rolling out, as people feel more and more safe, then you kind of start to see some things bounce back. And that to me makes me feel like, well, nothing's permanent in this environment, right? Like there's so many moving parts. It's just making sure you also have that flexibility internally to be like, all right, things kind of seem a little funky right now. Let me see what I can do to, you know, help my clients stay as stable as they can, or, you know, what can I do to help people feel a little bit more secure in the choices that they're making. So that has definitely been a big focus. You know, even working in that health industry, there was so much uncertainty, right? With the pandemic, like no one was going to the doctor because they're like, well, I don't need to. You know, people were scared to go into pharmacies because they're like, people are getting tested for COVID. Like, I don't want to see people. But regardless, like people still need that support and still need healthcare. So, you know, it's not like there will, it's not like 100% of things will go away, but you know, there'll be ups and downs and transitions, and that's just how life is. So having the flexibility and being able to kind of adapt to it will be helpful.
Thanks for that. And thank you for all this time. I was saying that, you know, who knows, we'll go as long as we feel like chatting, and we almost got the entire hour here.
I talk a lot. Sorry.
I love the talk. It's great because then you can give students a lot more, you know, in nuance and context and insight. So love it. Is there any questions maybe I didn't ask, or any other advice that you just wanted to make sure you left with the students?
I would say I think you and I were kind of talking about this at the beginning before we started, and like I know it's a really scary time. Like there is still things that I'm like I don't want to go out, like see a bunch of people, go to a concert, whatever, like that still freaks me out too. And so we're all adapting, we're all trying to figure out what's right for us personally. So I would say Georgetown, I know can be full of people who are passionate and competitive and really want to do well and feel successful. But I would say during this time, especially, don't put too much pressure on yourself to feel like you have to be, you know, the perfect student or have the perfect job post-graduation. You know, I think I still struggle with that too, but you know, you figure it out along the way, and life doesn't start or end at graduation. So, you know, it's just like a constant evolution. I'm still figuring out what I want to do career-wise and what excites me. You know, I'm happy with what I work on now, but who knows, in 10 years, it could be completely different. So that's just, you kind of learn and grow, and that'll never end. So that's, I think, the main thing is don't put too much pressure on yourself, because it'll work out no matter what.
Actually, that's a good place to end, because career is a journey, and it doesn't end. You know,
exactly.
It's like there's not an A to B and then you're done. It's like it's squiggly lines and pathways. So Jocelyn, thank you so much. This was super helpful. Really, I'm very grateful that you took the time off to do this, because I know you've been zooming along all day long. So thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. And thank you, Jackie, for coordinating all this and making sure students feel connected during this time, because I know it's definitely a new environment like we've been talking about, but I think you know, if I were a student, I'd probably be like, oh, great, like let me watch some of these and figure out how I can get an internship and job, you know. And that being said, if you are interested in advertising, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My net ID is JEK64, and I'm also on LinkedIn. So, you feel free to message me if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, and I'm happy to chat with any alumni. I actually recruited and referred someone who had listened to this chat last year. So that it'll work out, come talk to me, figure out if this is something that you're interested in, because there's always job openings. Even if you're not a data person, there's other departments you can work in. So yeah.
That's wonderful. And I'm going to press the stop button on this record because I want to talk to Jocelyn about who she recruited. So, so for everyone who's joining us, thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, guys.